I will guide you through the content of this webinar presentation. This webinar is a webinar that will be presented by the Publications Office of the European Union. So there are 4 sections in this webinar. The first one is going to be a presentation about the EU Open Data Portal, the single point of access to open data from EU institutions, agencies, and bodies that I will present. Then we will have a presentation from TED, Tenders Electronic Daily, by Cecilia, and then my colleagues from EUR-Lex will join, Valenia Frato, Georgi Totomatnov, and Silvina Bugnis to present about EUR-Lex. And then we will finish with a presentation from Enrico Francesconi about CELLAR. So before I start, I will present what are the rules of the competition and what you need to know in case you're interested to participate. So as I was saying before, this is the open data competition. So what it's looking for is to promote the potential of the use of open data from the public sector and bringing innovative ideas for Europe with this resource. So it's the 4th edition. And there are so many benefits that you can get out of it if you're interested. The first of them would be to show the creativity and the talent you have, demonstrating the potential of open data. The second one is to help Europe achieve important goals set by the Commission, because the different challenges that I will explain afterwards are aligned with the different challenges of the European Commission. And then also you can get prizes out of it, and you can claim your share of the total prize fund amounting to 100,000 euros. So as you can see, there are several benefits out of it. So now that I got maybe a little bit your attention, how can you participate? So you can organize yourself in teams. They can be up to 4 people, and you can submit your proposal about any of these challenges or about all of them, but not many proposals per challenge, of course. Then you have to submit your proposal before the 3rd of May. This is really important. Don't forget to submit your proposal before. So it should be your ideas and how you want to develop your project. And then, if you are shortlisted, you will be invited by your team to develop your proposal. And then you will be able to present your application in the 18th European Week of Regions and Cities in Brussels. That is like an event, a very big event that hosts more than 9,000 people. So in this event, you will have your own stand where you will have the possibility to show the results of your work, to network, to meet other colleagues interested in the same topics. And on the 15th of October, it will be the final event where we will have the final competition. So then what are the prizes? So the final ranking of the winning teams for each challenge will be decided at this event. And they will be awarded with the following prizes. So 3 places per challenge. So the first place will get 12,000 euros, the second place 8,000 euros, and the third place 5,000 euros. So then it's very important that to follow all this process and to participate in this competition, that you submit your proposal before the 3rd of May for this purpose. So the reason why we do these webinars, as you can see in the website, there are several webinars that are published there. And the purpose of the webinars are to help the participants to better understand the data, to find this information and how to exploit and get the best out of it. So for more information, of course, you can check the rules of the game in our website. And you can also contact us for this purpose. So in case you have any question, please send us any question to our functional mailbox, and you can find us also on Twitter to make sure you don't miss anything regarding the competition. About this webinar will be recorded. Please mute yourself. And now we're going to start the presentations. So you can always join and ask your question on the chat box. And after the presentation of each of my colleagues, I will ask them the questions you may have. So now I will start with a presentation from my side. I'm going to present the EU Open Data Portal. So the EU Open Data Portal is in the Publications Office of the European Union and is a single point of access to open data from the EU institutions, agencies, and bodies, as I said before. So what can you find there? So when you think about data, you normally relate it to statistics or you relate it to concrete ideas you may have in your mind. But there are several things that you can find here, since there's like any kind of public information that can be shareable, reusable for everyone. So you can find statistics and time series. You can find geographic and geospatial meteorological data. You can find reference data, also sets of biographic records, and data about projects, programs, actions, measures, and grants. So as you can see here, you can find really different types of information depending on the department we're working with. So the idea to do with all this information was to have a single point of access, but not only having this kind of catalog with all the data from the institutions. We also wanted to establish common rules for describing the data, because there are various ways in each department or each office to understand this data. So we want to create an standardized rules. From different non-open formats, we want to promote the openness of the data. So then we try to promote the use of open formats, and then we also want to establish one common legal notice and standard terms of use for commercial and non-commercial purposes. So this EU Open Data Portal comes from the Commission decision in 2011 on the reuse of Commission documents. So where it's established there's a necessity to have a single point of access to all this information that the Commission produces. And then on 2012, it was born the EU Open Data Portal. But we're being that the importance on this topic has been raising a lot. And then in 2019, there was also a decision adopting the Creative Commons as an open license. So as you can see, there's more awareness about the necessity of opening the data. And that's why it comes the idea of creating this competition, because we want to promote and see the benefits out of it. So now I'm going to guide you to take you to the portal. Please let me know if you cannot see it. Okay, so now you may see the portal. So this is the EU Open Data Portal. So this is the homepage, where you can find already some notices about the data we produce.
We can't see it yet. No.
Oh, you cannot? Wait.
I can see your PowerPoint.
Okay. I'm going to share it again. Wait. Okay. Now?
Yes, now it's good. But now not anymore. I can see you.
Can you see me? Can you see
yes.
the portal?
I can. Not yet.
Mm-hmm. Wait, give me a second.
See your white screen.
I'm going to share the screen again. Oops. Now?
Yes, now it's good.
Great. Perfect. Thank you.
But it disappeared again. All white now, yes. Yes, now it's back.
Okay. Okay. So then I will thank you very much, Cecilia. So the other connection doesn't work. Okay. So then this is the EU Open Data Portal, as I was saying before. So I'm going to guide you through a little bit what you can find here. So it gives you access to all the open data published by the institutions, agencies, and bodies. All the data you can find here is a catalog of metadata that are free of use and reuse for commercial and non-commercial purposes. So then you can see here, like for the purpose of the COVID-19, now we're trying to publish on this, to see like what the institutions are doing for this purpose. So here you can find information or data sets related to this topic. That is the case of the European Center for Disease and Prevention and Control, as well as some information about what's happening. So this is what it can be more interesting for you, for the IT developers who are thinking about applying for the competition. So here you have the data space. So as you can see here, you can browse your data sets depending on the subjects or the groups you're interested in. Since you know that there are different challenges, you can check it depending on the challenge you want, and the portal will help you to do this research. For example, imagine that I want to do it for the European Green Deal, the first challenge, and I want to check all the datasets related to environment. But I want to see the most viewed ones. Okay, I want to be the most downloaded ones. So then it's going to be sorted out. But then you can also do it by themes, but other themes that are overlapping, or you can do it as well by publishers. And also EUR-Lex concepts. So, okay, I'm going to. So then, as you can see here, you can find all the information you may need. Depending on the type of format, you can also make a selection on the format, that you can do it in zip, in CSV, in PDF, in Excel, etc. So you have here filter depending on the resource format you need. Also by the geographical coverage, that it can be very interesting for you, and the language. So the most interesting thing here is that it's a multilingual tool, and it's all these languages harmonized. So when you're doing your research, you will be able to have translation in the 24 different languages, and it will help you a lot in terms of browsing and finding data sets. So as you can see, it's done with EU vocabularies that has like that is like a thesaurus that helps to have an harmonization between the different vocabularies produced by the EU institutions, agencies, and bodies. So here, for example, imagine that you want to find some information regarding economy and finance, and then you want to know more about some EU vocabulary concepts. For example, banking supervision. This can help, for example, for an economy that works for the people. So here you can find different data sets that can help you to guide you through. So here you can see, for example, in this case, EU-wide transparency exercises results in 2015, for example. You can see all the EUR-Lex concepts here. You can see the last time it was updated. And then you have here the different resources that you can download in different formats. So somehow it helps you to have like all this collection together. But as I'm saying, it's a catalog of metadata that is done by our data providers. You also have the URL where you can find this information, and the landing page. So it helps you a lot to know where this information comes from, and to also have an overview about the different type of data that all the institutions and agencies produce. As well, you have normally a contact point in case you need it. We also care a lot about what the users think about us. So if you really want to give us feedback, suggest a data set, or there's something else we can improve in our services, please just make a suggestion, and we will try to help you as much as we can. So we also try to promote interoperability. So I will show you this example that is produced by the European Union Agency for the Cooperation of Energy Regulators. So as you can see here is a data collection in a framework on the ASER annual report. But then you have the possibility as well to find related resources. For example, if I click here, I can see that in Directorate General for Energy, they also publish data sets that are related to this topic. So it's very interesting in order to know how the data are linked to each other. So other things that may be interesting for you could be the applications part and tab, that where you can find some examples of applications developed by the European institutions, agencies, bodies, as well as third parties. That is marked as well. So we have over 100 applications. And then you have as well the functionality of linked data. That it helps you to run queries in order to know the data that we store here in this catalog of metadata. And then we also have the developers corner that encourages the use of EU datasets building on third-party applications. So this information, we have also REST AP and a Sparkle endpoint, as mentioned before, an RDF data model. So this data, as I was saying before, is published by our data providers that we work with them constantly. So right now we have 80 publishers, data providers from all the different all the EU, and we have a total of 14,469 datasets available. So I think this is part of my presentation. As I was saying before, it's when you are exploring the different datasets, you will see that there's a lot of potential needs, and you see the interoperability between the different datasets and how the different departments or institutions, they sometimes have different type of information that can be suitable for you for the challenges. So having said this, now I will give the floor to my colleagues. I will stop sharing my screen. So now will be the turn of Ted. So I will give the floor to Cecilia.
Yes.
Cecilia, you can present whenever you want. The floor is yours.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my presentation?
No.
Okay, sorry, takes just a minute. Should work better now.
Now it works.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks, Ima. So my name is Cecilia Charlier. I'm a webmaster for the TED website, and I'm very happy to present you TED data this afternoon. I'm joined by our colleague Bertrand Lorenz, who is our specialist with APIs. So this afternoon, I'm going to tell you what is TED, what notices we publish on TED, why is the publication of procurement important, and why is the role of the publications office important. Then we will see how TED data fits in the EU Datathon challenges. I will show you the website with the main features. Then we will talk about open data, see the data model. I will briefly touch upon the fact that we are on the EU Open Data Portal because Inma already told you everything about that. We will see what could be done with the data and what other data sources could be linked. So what is TED exactly? TED stands for Tenders Electronic Daily. It is the online version of the supplement to the official journal, the OJS of the EU. And the Publications Office has to publish something in this supplement. According to European directives, we have to publish notices for procurement procedures of public authorities of a certain threshold. And according to the financial regulation, we also publish the notices of the EU institutions. So that provides access to business opportunities from the European Union, but also beyond, from the European Economic Area and further. And it's a free access. To give you an idea, we publish notices 5 times a week, so that's from Monday to Friday at 9 o'clock in the 24 EU official languages. And for the notices that are not translated, we also have machine translation available. If we continue with figures, we publish on average 2,400 notices per edition. This means more than 622,000 notices per year. So that's a lot of data. Here's the legal basis. I'm not going to go through it in details, just to tell you that we have 4 European directives that are governing public procurement. We're also governed by the financial regulations. And because all this data needs to be standardized and harmonized so that you can be the data can be exploited later, we also have some regulations establishing standard procurement forms. Currently, we've had the regulation of 2015, and we also have a new one that has been in force since last year, the regulation on e-forms. So we also have the regulation on public transport procurement. This is our legal basis. Who publishes on TED? We can see that most of our publishers come from the member states, from central governments or regional or local authorities, 96.14%. Why is procurement important? Well, procurement means money, and a lot of money. In Europe, to give you an idea, it accounts for 2 trillion euro per year. And on TED alone, we publish for a worth of 545 billion euro per year. And why is this publication important? Well, it is public money. So we need to make sure that it is transparent, that we ensure competition, that there's an equal treatment, that we make efficient use of public money, we promote businesses, and also this spending is monitored and controlled. And this helps fight corruption, fraud, and waste of money, because procurement costs a lot of money. Why is this publication important for the EU? Well, it fits with its objectives of growth, of strategic investment, of boosting the internal market, trade, research, and ethics. Why is the publications office role important as well? Basically, we are the link between the buyers and the vendors. So we do have our notices. We receive the notices from the buyers via some websites that are called e-notices and e-send tool, depending on who sends them. We process these notices in a tool that is called TED Monitor. We send the notices to a contractor so that they check the formats. They also translate the notices from the EU institutions. And then when they are validated by our production team, they are published on TED, where the vendors can consult them to see all the business opportunities available, but also the auditors can consult all these data and the reusers as well. We also have another website, which is for the publication of call for tender documents for the European institutions and agencies, which is called e-tendering, and that also makes the links between the buyers and the vendors. So how does our data fit within the context of the challenges of the EU Datathon? Well, the first challenge, the European Green Deal. We do publish procurement in the sector of the environment. We use what we call the Common Procurement Vocabulary, the CPV, and you can find data using these keywords, so the CPV on environment and sanitation, and you can find all the notices that have this business sector. Because the Datathon 2020 is also focusing on the EU regions, it's important to know you can filter this data by place of performance using the NUTS classification. This is the nomenclature of territorial units for statistics established by Eurostat. We use this on TED, so you can filter the data by place of performance. In the context of Challenge 2, an economy that works for people, well, TED actually generates some growth potential because it enables companies to compete in order to get public procurement contracts. And we also publish procurement in the field of research, knowing that, again, this data can be filtered by place of performance using the NUTS classification. For the third challenge, a new push for European democracy, TED increases transparency, it helps fight corruption, and it improves the fairness of public investment. So it really fits in that challenge too. And with regard to challenge 4, a Europe that is fit for the digital age, The official journal is published in the electronic form only. It has been, TED has been existing since 1983, but since 1998, the data is only available on the TED website and in electronic form. And with regard to the e-forms, I want to mention the standard forms that I mentioned earlier. Basically, there's a wider project that has a goal of complying with a principle in e-government that is once only. And the goal of this is to reduce the administrative burden and increase the data reliability. This means that it would allow to reuse data from previous notices, for example, previous contracts, from national administrative registries, and so on. And the ultimate goal of this is that notices would no longer be filled manually, but they would be generated automatically by software system. So now I'm going to show you TED data. We're going to switch to the live to the website to show you. Oops, sorry. Yes, so this is TED when you access the homepage. On the top hand corner, you can see the latest issue of the official journal. I was mentioning over 2,000 notices per edition, so you can click there and find the edition of the day. You can also find the previous issues by clicking on the release calendar, and you see that there will be another issue tomorrow. If you want data, you can by subject, so by business opportunities, by business sectors, we mentioned the CPV, by place of delivery, place of performance, the nuts, or you can also look at the map that we see on the right and click on a certain area that you want to see the notices of. I was mentioning before the CPV. If I click on it, you can actually see, can find all the current notices in the business sector of research and development. This is a tree-like structure, so you can go further in the tree and refine your criteria. This is for browsing. I can also search with more criteria, so I can make an advanced search by clicking here, or an expert search. So let's look at the advanced search. Here I have a series of filters, but I can actually show more filters by clicking on this. I can find, for example, all the notices that are contract notices. So I can select here, contract notice. If I want to see all the notices that will have as a place of performance France, I can go in the nuts classification here and select France. Click on OK. And if I launch my search, I will have all the current notices, because here I selected all current notices, that are contract notices and have a place of performance France. I can also run an expert search, and this is a more specific search that you can exclude some criteria, combine more criteria, and it's a coded search, so I can actually show you by switching to expert mode, and if I click on this, it will convert my advanced search that we created just now into an expert search, and you will see that this is really a coded query. Basically, it says that the type of document is 3. This corresponds to contract notices with a place of performance that is France. So if I search, I will find all the notices that meet these criteria. This is my search results, and I can see basic information about each notice. I can see when this was published, what is the deadline for it, because these are contract notices, and I can have some actions on the results. If I want to consult a specific notice, I can click on the document number, and I have the notice view. Here you can see all the information of the notice. And you can also look at the data itself. You can see it in a more concise way. If I go back to current language, I can also access the PDF version of the notice or the XML version. So the notices are published in the original language with a summary for the notices that come from the member states, and for the notices of the EU institutions, they are translated in all the EU languages. If I'm a registered user on TED, I get more out of the website, so I click on login here, and I can see already more information. Basically, I can save my searches, so if I want to perform every day the same search, I don't need to put on all the criteria that we did put. I can just save it, and it will appear here in my dashboard. Here I save the search, for example. I can even have a RSS feed on this search. And I can ask to have an email alert whenever new notices are published that meet my criteria. I can also follow some specific notices so that whenever something happens in the life of this notice, I will have also a notification. So for example, if there's a corrigendum that is published, if there's a contract award notice that is published, I will get a notification. So let's go back to the presentation. This is the website. We also have bulk data available. So TED is open data. So all the notices are published in XML format for reuse according to Commission decision. Notices can be downloaded in bulk. So from the website, if you're a registered user, you can access directly the XML packages of the daily and monthly edition from 2012. I can show you on the website where that is, under My TED. Here, if I click on XML bulk downloads, I can directly access this bulk data. And I can also access it from the FTP. And on the FTP, we have XML packages of the daily and monthly edition from 1993. Our data can also be accessed through APIs using the REST method. We have two APIs to get the data. So the TED website API is the first one, and it's used to get notice data. For this, we use the Swagger user interface. You have the link here. You can combine different criteria to retrieve specific information. And there the format is the one of an expert search that I just showed you earlier. I would recommend you use the version V2 of the API because there the API key is optional. You can find the link in the presentation for more information. Then when you get this notice data, if you want to render the notice in PDF or in HTML in a specific language, you can also use the TED Notice Viewer API. We put a link to the Swagger user interface, and there I would recommend that you use the version 1 of the API, and you also have a link for the API documentation. So there's an example of the first API to get information from the notice. In the fields, you need to use content, to choose content to see the content of the notice. And I was mentioning it uses the format of an expert search. There you can see it. Then you will execute, and this will give you the content of the notice XML file encoded in base 64. Then you can render this notice in HTML using the other API, the TED Notice Viewer. Here you have an example of a Perl syntax, and you will get the notice in the HTML notice encoded in base 64, and you can use the decoding tool. We give you an example here. You can also obtain the number of notices for each geographical area, and this is actually what the TED website uses to create the map that is on the home page, place of delivery. And if you want more information about all our APIs, we have a full page about them on the CMAP website. It is called Developers Corner. I give you the link. And the page is even translated in 24 languages, which can make it easier. Concerning the data model, the XML schemas used for the notices are available on the EU Vocabulary's website. And I give you again the link to the XML bulk download. And to give you an idea, we have about 100,000 downloads per month. We also have another API that is the e-tendering JSON list. You can retrieve the published code for tenders from the EU institutions and agencies. And this gives you a list as they are published on the e-tendering website. You can even filter the information. We also have documentation for this. As I was mentioning, we are a subset of our data is published on the EU Open Data Portal and is available in CSV format, as Ima showed you earlier. So, for the questions, what could be done with our data? Basically, the burning question in procurement, public procurement at the moment is who bought what, to whom, when, where, for how long, in which procurement type, and for how much. So if you can answer this question or show this information, it would be very useful. You could also make public tenders more transparent, and there we have put a few links for inspiration. For example, a DigiWist project, which is quite popular. Which other data sources could be linked? We give you an example. You could link TED data to the financial transparency system. This is actually a website from the European Commission, and it shows you the beneficiaries of funds awarded by the European Commission. So this is us, the address of our website, our email. You can also follow us on Twitter if you want to know about the latest tenders that are published. And any question you would have would be very appreciated. Thank you very much for your time.
Cecilia, thank you very much for your presentation. I really like how you align it with the different challenges, because I think it will be very useful for the future participants. I didn't say it before, but in case you have any questions for the EU Open Data Portal or for TED, please don't hesitate to write it down on the chat box, and then we will answer to you. If not, of course, you can contact us to the contact details we showed you. So now, for the moment, I don't have any question. So for TED, so we're done for this part. So now we're gonna go to know more about EUR-Lex. So now we will have like a general presentation of EUR-Lex and EUR-Lex data. So it will be done by Valentina Frato. So Valentina, you can start whenever you want. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? Perfect.
Yes, great.
Okay, can you see me? Very
Yes.
good, thank you. So for EUR-Lex, I understand I have 20 minutes more or less. I have not a PowerPoint presentation, but I wanted to show you directly the screen, the EUR-Lex website. So I want to present the content of EUR-Lex directly from the screen. I want to go through the content, give you an example, and with this example I want to show information and give you insight how you can link to other information and make something out of it. So I will share my screen now. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Very well. Okay. So this is EUR-Lex, and what you can find on EUR-Lex, of course, you know all the introduction. When you think about EU law, you will think about EUR-Lex. And we want it to be as intuitive as possible, so you can see from the home page the main categories of law that you can find on EUR-Lex. So the main are EU law, EU case law, national law, and case law. And of course, the official journal. And then you have the subcategories. Then there are different type of searches. When you look for a document, you can have the official journal. It is important to know that the authentic version of the official journal is digital since 1st of July 2013. So the authentic version you can find only on EUR-Lex. Then you will find how to search for a document, a different kind of searches, how to reuse our content. And for this, we have a dedicated space. I'll show you immediately under the information section. You have some statistics as well. In fact, what I wanted to know, it's an about page. You have this section on data reuse, and then you will have information. In fact, our data is in a repository, which is called CELLAR. You probably have heard about it. And you access the CELLAR. You can access via SparkQL, endpoint, and a RESTful API. And on this page, you will find also a documentation on how to do that. You can also enter EUR-Lex via web service. You can register, it's free. And you have also documentation. You have also information about the data model, which is used on EUR-Lex with links. And most documents you will find on EUR-Lex website are PDF and HTML. But you can access, when you access the repository CELLAR, you can find the XML format, which is the Formax XML-based format. So on this page, you can find information on how to access directly the repository, which is behind EUR-Lex. And now I go back to the home pages. And so this is the main content you can find. Different type of searches. This is very general. When you don't know, you know only the topic, but you don't know exactly what you're looking for. For example, if I type reuse, this will search in all database. So it will search in all the title, the text, the metadata. This means that you will get a large number of results. And then the filters on the left side, they help you to narrow down your results by different topics. Then if you know more about what you're looking for, you can use the advanced search. The advanced search is interesting because the different categories I show you on the home page at the beginning, so EU law and also case law, are also here. And this, when you click on one of these categories, the criteria, they change automatically. So it's dynamic, and so it can be very specific, the criteria. So if you look for the international agreements, you have a different type of agreements with member states, with international organizations. You will not find the same criteria if I go to case law, when I can choose according to the, for example, the name of a judge, of the Advocate General. So this is very powerful if you want, if you have a really specific specific criteria. So you can combine many criteria. And of course, if you have the exact reference of your search, you can use this widget, which will give you one result. Now I want to go, show you an example, go it through, because I will give you more information with an example. So I don't know exactly what example, but I will look for a directive, 2012. I'll take the first one, for example. And what information do you have? So in the first view, which is the text view, you have a different view, and I go through all these. So the text, the document information, procedure, network procedure, document summary, and I want to show all of them. So in the text view, you have what is important is the directive, is the title, is the reference of the official journal. It tells you in color and not this is in force. But be careful, it gives you also the indication is in force, but this act has been changed, because the fact is in force. it doesn't mean that during, from this case since 2012, there are some parts of the text that has been amended. So there are different amendments, and you can see with the consolidated version. I'll show you immediately in a new tab. So that means this was the initial act. This is something we have introduced with the latest release today. And from 2012, then in 16, 17, and this one in 19, there have been amendments to this act, and you can see them here. So there have been modification. You will have a specific later, and the third part will call consolidation and summaries. So you will look this into detail. But I just wanted to show the information, the main information. So I go back to my text view, and you will have the text in HTML. So you will have immediately, and then you have the possibility to show the text in 3 different languages at the same time. This is interesting for translators, but I wanted to show you these features. So this is the main information on the text view. And then about the document, we have a lot of information, what we call metadata. So when I go to the view under document information, you will have dates, classification. This is the topic, the subject. It can be according to Eurobox, Thesaurus, or others that were used in the past. You have information about the procedure. We will see later. We see the legal basis. You will see the relations. So this is very interesting. It was this directed as amended other acts. And these acts are indicated by a number, which we call, in an identifier, we call CELLAR number. But if you put your mouse over the number, you will see the title in extenso, so you can read. And then has been amended by or corrected by different acts. So all these relations are very useful, are very interesting to follow the life of an act. Here we have put all this in a table, but of course it will be, there are other ways to show them, to visualize them, to make it more user-friendly. We have also information on the interpretation of judgment from the Court of Justice. So all the relations, all the consolidated version I showed you before, and there are information around this act. Now it's on this page, but it could be presented in a different way. Then an act is the result of a procedure. So now I move to this procedure view, where I have a basic timeline, and this timeline corresponds to an actor, an action from an actor, so the main actor which participates to the legislative procedure, which usually starts with a proposal from the Commission and it ends with the publication of the official journal. So you have this view which corresponds to this different, if you click on one of these, you can go, you will go to this procedural view. Now, this procedure maybe it's not complete in the sense that also the website of the Council and the European Parliament have documents and steps that are on the website, but they don't send to EUR-Lex. So it could be interesting to combine the information you have here with other more detailed information that exists on the Parliament website or on the Council to have a complete procedure. And also here, the end of the procedure is the publication of the official journal. But as I told you before, after the publication of the official journal, it's possible they are amending acts. So it's not really the end of life of an act. Then, because it's a directive, I move now to the view of the national transposition. And a directive is, just a reminder, that type of act for which the EU gives the objective to reach and then gives freedom to each member state to find the way to reach that objective within a certain deadline. So in this case, on this page, you will find how and if each member state have implemented that measure. So, for example, for Belgium, we have 4 measures. And on this measure, I have the title and I have the reference. If I want to look for them, I know that the first one I can find on the Moniteur Belge, on that page, and the publication date. We don't have the text itself, we have only the titles. We have text for certain countries that accepted to send the text as a PDF or a link to the website since 2017. So you will find for recent national transposition measure for certain countries, you can find the whole text. Otherwise, if I click here, I have the title only, that I have the possibility to translate if you want to understand what it's about. Now, this is French. If you want to look for your language, this is also possible to understand if this kind of, this act is pertinent to your search. So again, with the national transposition measure, it's interesting to know how EU law can be linked to national law, to case law. So the interpretation maybe on a certain directive to a judgment from the Court of Justice on that topic. This is another food for thought, this linking about national and EU. Now, this is about the national transposition measures. Then we have also another view, which is summaries. I will not go too much into detail because also you will have a presentation on this later. And the summary, this is nice because so the directive we were talking about, we were referring to, it was, if I read the title, it was a directive establishing a single European railway area. So it's about railway. I know the subject. If you want to know very quickly, in a very simple language, what it's about, and you're not a lawyer, you don't want to read the whole directive, here is a very nice summaries about the content of the directive. So written in an easy language and answering the most intuitive or logic questions you might have. From when does directive apply, to whom, what is the aim of the directive, etc. And then at the end you have also some useful information about the key term used and relation to other documents. So this is what I wanted to show as an example. If I do a search, there's something else I want to show. When I do a search, what I see immediately is the title, of course, and then have this, what we call metadata, the reference of the OJ, if it's enforced or not enforced, the author. But you can have also other type of information if you want. So if you change displayed metadata, you can have, for example, the legal basis, the language and formats available, and if I do apply, it will show you. So the legal basis was not there before, and the languages. So it depends on your needs, you can have immediately. But then if I leave the website, this information will disappear. If you want to have it as a permanent feature, if you register, which is of course is free, you can set these features, but also others to be permanent. You can personalize your account, you view on EUR-Lex, and you have other features as a registered users. They might be useful to use EUR-Lex in your most convenient way. So this is the introduction I wanted to give you. It's really a challenge to talk about EUR-Lex in 20 minutes. But for the scope of the objective is the Datathon, I thought this is covering the main points, the three main points, the content, the reuse possibilities, and some features. That's what you need. There is also an e-learning module. It could be helpful to go through, but I think that it should be intuitive, what you're looking for. There's a lot of information on each act, and the type of legislation, of course, you have to choose some law, EU law knowledge, if you want to think how to link. The possibility to links are many when we talk about, for example, international agreements, documents, for example, with the what we call EFTA documents, so with the countries that are part of the European Economic Area, which apply the same rules, the internal market. What it goes to procedures to see what the institutions, all the three institutions, how they contribute to make the law. Then we have also national law and case law. This is part I haven't talked much. I talked only about national transposition measures, but there are also case law, which is published on EUR-Lex because has a relation with EU law. But for this, you will not find the text. You will find only the references. I see if recent publishes, like the national transposition measures. So, for example, this is Bulgarian. And yeah, this is a bit more difficult. We have a subsection of national law, which is called JURE. Now I go to the English because it's, for this we have, for this JURE, which is national case law, but it's in the field of jurisdiction, recognition and enforcement of judgment in civil and commercial matters. Here we have more information. We have also a summary in 3 languages because there is an obligation, according to Lugano Convention, to publish on EUR-Lex relevant information about judgment, national case law in this field. So for this, you have a summary, so you have more information and you have more than the original language. And again, here this is also gives you ideas about linking EU law with the national law. And I want to conclude now my presentation. and I will be happy to answer your question, if any. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Valentina, for your presentation. I know that it's sometimes difficult to present all the services of EUR-Lex sometimes, but you can also provide links or useful documents in the website afterwards, in case there's any.
Sure.
So then we go with Georgi Totomanov. So you can start whenever you want.
Hello, everybody. I hope you could hear me well.
Yes.
So what I will use my time frame for, actually, I will continue where my colleague Valentina's ended. And okay, I'll try to share my screen. How I do this? Yes. Okay. So you. Okay. Right, so you already got some idea what information we have in EUR-Lex. Really, we have a very huge collection of different type of legal information. And our goal is to make it really accessible, easy to access for everybody. We have content that's for specialized groups, for the lawyers, but also we have a easy to read content that's for non-specialists. And we really want to cover all the audiences, all type of audiences. And even though the EUR-Lex website presents the information nicely, it has the powerful search capabilities, it has nice displays. So what you saw, for instance, for the procedures with the timelines and the events and all these comparative views. Also, our goal is to provide to our users a way to extract the data at the level they want, the raw data or maybe the data they need, in case they need to use this data for their own purposes, like to present it in a different way or structure it differently. In other words, to fulfill whatever goal they have. And I'll start my presentation with just giving you some idea what type of or volume of documents we have in EUR-Lex. The information is from the beginning of March statistics, so we have more than 1 million documentary units in EUR-Lex and almost 40,000 legal procedures. And all this information is available. Maybe not all of it, but most of it is available in 23 languages, even 24 languages. And for instance, from the beginning of the year till now, we have something more than 4,000 documentary units uploaded in EUR-Lex. When it comes to the user activities, we have between 3-4 million visits per month, sometimes up to 6-7 millions. And the number of pages consulted is in the range between 10, 15, 18 million pages per month. So all this information available in EUR-Lex, it could be accessed outside of the EUR-Lex in several different ways. The first way we present is the RSS feeds, which we have the RSS. We have two types of RSS feeds available in EUR-Lex system. One of them is the predefined RSS feeds, which are available, ready to use for everybody that has access to EUR-Lex, that access EUR-Lex. And currently we have 9 predefined RSS feeds. And those cover really the basic and what seems to be the most sought after information. However, in addition to those 9 predefined RSS feeds, EUR-Lex offers the possibility to define custom-based RSS feeds. And actually, for this, there are only 2 simple conditions that has to be met. One of them is that custom RSS feeds are available for registered users only. And to create a custom-based RSS feed, the only thing the registered user has to do is when they perform a search, they could easily convert this search to a predefined RSS feed by just clicking on the link which says create in my RSS feeds. For instance, here you could see I did a quick search for fisheries, and then I could save this as in my RSS feeds. And then everything after that, I could use whatever RSS reader I use, or even a browser, to access my stored RSS feed. And here it is, I got the recently published documents. You see, I mean, the first documents are from 24th of March. So this really gives me the view of what's going on in this area of interest I've defined for myself. So, but the RSS feeds, they have their limitations. Of course, they are a powerful tool, but they have limitations. Namely, they just display the most recent information. And of course, different users and reusers of EUR-Lex data could be interested in more sophisticated searches or more specialized searches. That's why EUR-Lex offers also web service, which web service is SOAP based. It means that a SOAP envelope is sent to the SOAP endpoint. And this SOAP envelope, it has, actually this is a little bit later, but it has 2 main parts. One of them is the security token, which actually identifies the user. And the second one is the actual payload, which has the query that has to be executed by EUR-Lex and which returns the result. In order to use the web services, you, as I mentioned, you have to be you also have to be not only a registered user, but after you register, you have to go to a specific page and request access to the web services, which is granted by EUR-Lex colleagues, if of course the request makes sense. And after that, you will receive via email the unique password that has to be used. It could be used only for accessing the web service functionality. Now, the web service is the same thing as what the expert search in EUR-Lex is doing, meaning it is based on expert query, and it's searching within what we call the indexation notice. That's, I suppose my colleagues from the CELLAR team will speak more about notices, about tree notice, branch notice, indexation notice. The indexation notice is a subset of all the metadata we have for the document. The metadata that's indexed in the search engine, and that's searchable through expert queries. So as I mentioned, that to use the web service, the calling application has to send a well-formed SOAP request to the web service endpoint, which is the main URL for EUR-Lex, then followed by /EUR-Lex VS. And this is an example of the SOAP message as you see, it has the username and the password, which has to be substituted here, has to be substituted with the password you received via email. Then we have the query, and the query, it could be as simple as quick search, and then the phrase you would usually type in the quick search box, or it could be as complicated as you need using the expert search syntax. Then also some additional information has to be supplied, like the page number, the page size, and of course the search language, the language you're searching in. And here it is some examples of what queries can be used. Actually, every query that can be used in EUR-Lex could be transformed to a web service query and could be used with the web services. For instance, as I mentioned, this the first example covers the quick search. We have the predefined keyword, which is quick search, and then follows the keyword you're looking for. Or it could be based on the advanced search. I think Valentina showed the advanced search form that you have a nice view with the fields. You could just type the data you're interested in. For instance, this query will search for all the legislation and documents for 2012. Or if you want to go, you could be even more precise and search for legal acts that the author is European Commission and the year is 2020, which means then we have another condition which actually limits the author document to European Commission. Or it could be any expert search query that you could execute via the expert search. For instance, the query here gives you, I'm not sure if it can be seen or not, but actually this is the query we used to find the number of documentary units loaded since the beginning of the year. And every of these searches could be transformed into an expert search, and of course can be used in the web services envelopes. Now, after you submit the SOAP request, the web service returns a response, which this is just the first couple of lines. So what it returns is how many documents satisfy the query. Then, of course, since this is one document, this is page number 1. The language I used, in this case, Slovenian. And then it lists all the documents with the metadata I requested. By default, there is a predefined set of metadata that's included in the results. Like it includes for instance, the SELEX number. It includes the seller identifier. I think includes the title of the documents. But this is the default metaset. And if I want to use a different metadata, or I'm interested in a different metadata and set of metadata, that could be added to the query using the select clause, which is something that's very useful for the web services. Using the select clause in expert queries also works, but in my opinion, the result is could be a little bit misleading. But here, this is really useful feature where you specify exactly what you want to see, and only that data is returned without any additional white noise. For instance, I want to see the title, which is here, and I want to see the last notification date, which is the value here. And that, you see, is everything that's returned for the document I was looking for. So just to do a quick recap on the web services. So first thing is that every expert query and every query generated by EUR-Lex or used in the EUR-Lex website can be transformed and can be used as a query in the web service. And but this is not everything. There is a huge list of metadata which can be used in the web service as a filtering criteria in the where clause or as a result set in the select clause, which we published in on the EUR-Lex website at the address given here. This shows really the latest state of the metadata and how it could be used. So, and of course, it gives also the relation to the expat in the notice. So you could really identify what metadata you want or you would be interested in and use exactly this one to get the information you need. Speaking about retrieving data, I would like to mention another possibility or another feature of EUR-Lex, which is the use of URI servers. Documents in EUR-Lex could be accessed using different identifiers. One document, it's very common to have more than one identifier. Of course, every document, every act published in EUR-Lex has this CELLAR identifier, which is machine identifier. It's not really human readable. But also we have, for instance, the CELLAR number, which gives you a lot of information about the document itself. So it gives you the sector, the year, the type of the documents, and the number of the documents. That's the general format of the CELLAR number. But also for instance, another identifier or another example of an identifier could be for instance, a latest version of consolidated layers linked to an act could be done by this or could be retrieved by using conslec identifier, which we have the CELLAR for the act. We want the latest one in English and in PDF if that's possible. Of course, the documents could have ELI or ECLI identifiers, which also could be used. The document could be requested using that identifier. Of course, having different identifiers could be a little bit misleading, I suppose, but on the other hand, this is a really powerful mechanism to our users to be able to extract the information they're looking for using the identifiers in the way of identifying the documents they are really familiar with. So we do not want to limit anybody to just to use a specific identifier. So all the identifiers that are in use and that are supported could be used, and they are really produce equal results. And the web services, RSS feeds, and the URI server, they work on a EUR-Lex level, meaning they go through the search engine, and that's how actually the result set is extracted. But then, if needed, you could go a little bit lower, and you could get the data you're interested in directly from the CELLAR, which I suppose my colleague that will speak after me will get more into details about that, so I will not really step into this, but using the CELLAR APIs, REST APIs, you could retrieve any information you need for a document. For instance, you could retrieve the different type of notices like tree, branch, object, identifier. You could retrieve the RDF and XML formatted metadata or the content stream, which actually is the text of the document. You could have access to name authority lists and EUR-Vox services. All this information is available directly from the CELLAR, which is the content and metadata repository we use. And here it is some really quick example how you could get this information. It's all based on HTTP GET requests, which setting the appropriate HTTP headers. So, for instance, to get a branch notice for a different document, you have to set the following two headers. One of them is to accept application XML and the type of the notice, namely the branch notice, and then what language you want it decoded into. And this is the example using CURL, how this really looks in practice. So this is another possibility of accessing the data that EUR-Lex displays. And another very powerful mechanism is the CELLAR exposes also a SparkQL endpoint, which is using the Virtuoso. So with this thing, you could query the triplets stored in the CELLAR, and you really could optimize and get the data you need. For instance, the query here, which will give you the different for a given document. They give you the different language versions, what type or what type of documents we have, like if it's a Formex, HTML, PDF, whatever, then it shows you also the title and the link to the different manifestations of the document. Okay, so this is, and of course, there is a kind of a shortcut where you could just access directly from the CELLAR with modified URLs. Like for instance, to access the tree notice, you could add this part here at the end of the URL, which this is the CELLAR ID I was mentioning before. And then you said, okay, I want the XML and I want the tree notice decoded in English language. So, or this is how you could access the RDF. So it's the same example, but then you want the RDF and then you add what's necessary at the end of the URL, so you could get the RDF of the notice of the same document. So just to conclude here, then we really have access. You could reuse the document or the data of the documents, the metadata and the document itself on different levels, starting from the simplest thing, which is the RSS feed, then going through web services, which offers the expert search like functionality and the possibility to filter and get exactly the metadata you want, you're searching for, and documents that satisfy this metadata condition. And then if necessary, you could go even lower and query the metadata repository itself, where you could retrieve the metadata as well as the content of each document. So if you have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer. Of course, you could send us an email to the email address shown on the screen, and me and my colleagues would be really happy to provide more information in case you need some, or you have questions, comments, also any suggestions for improvement or how to make the things more user-friendly are very welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Georgi, for your presentation. For the moment, we don't have any questions. If there is any question, we'll address them to you. So now we go with the last presentation from EUR-Lex, from Silvinas Buknis. So you can start whenever you want.
Hello, so do you hear me? Work? Okay, great. So as I understand, I have like 5 minutes until the end of this webinar, so I'll be quick. So I will present the specific metadata which is relevant to consolidation and summaries of EU legislation. So as it was presented before, both consolidated text and summaries are part of a EUR-Lex document collection, and they can be found on EUR-Lex, and they can be found using these searches which were shown before. But in addition to that, I would just like to emphasize the certain metadata which are relevant specifically to consolidated acts and to summaries. But before that, I would like just to make a very super simplified explanation what both of these type of documents are about. So consolidated texts are legal acts which incorporate inside all the amendments which act has undergone during its life cycle. So it meaning that if there is an amendment published, so it is published on official journal on EUR-Lex, and then we create this consolidated text which incorporates all these changes. And then summary is another step which goes in parallel, and where we describe in a human understandable simple language the content of a legal act which has been adopted by the legislator, meaning if we have a complex directive, decision, or regulation of 20, 30 pages, we have 1, 2, 3 pages summary explaining to ordinary people what this legal act is about. So all this content is available on EUR-Lex. It's available also, it's stored as any other document stored on CELLAR and can be downloaded from there. It is published in structured format in Formex in both cases, for summaries and for consolidation. So it means it can be mined and the text can be extracted from there. Also behind we have specific metadata. So for consolidation, consolidated acts, they belong to the class act consolidated, and there on the right side, I show several elements or several metadata of these documents. So mostly the identifiers, they have LI, they have a SELEX number, and they have a date. Which means the date when all the amendments are applicable for this particular act, which are integrated in this particular version, meaning that if we have amendment in which it is said that it is applicable as of 1st of July 2020, so this date will be 1st of July 2020 if this amendment is included in this consolidated text. And on the left side, you see we have links to the act which is being consolidated, the basic act, the main act, and all the amendments which are included in this consolidated version. So this can be used in building some network or showing the life cycle of the act, how it changed over the time. If you think about some nice, let's say, exploitation of this metadata. And next, about summaries. So also, it is important to mention that, of course, these documents, we have all the other metadata which are applicable to all other acts, like the offer, like the list of expressions, list of manifestations, and all the things which are common to all other documents on the CELLAR. For summaries, again, besides all the common metadata which is applicable to each and every document on CELLAR and EUR-Lex, in addition, we have a link to the document which is being summarized. So a legal act, it could be one, it could be several. Then, which is interesting, we have a title of a summary, which is like a simplified version of what the legal act is, simplified version of a title of a legal act. If legal act is a very formal, it says like Council, European Parliament decision number this or that year. So summary title will be a short, few words description of the topic. So this is also can be used like to have a very quick description of the legal act. Besides that, we have also expression abstract, which you see in red. Why it is in red? Because it is something which is not currently fully populated with metadata, but it's in a very short term we are going to put data in this field, so it will be also possible to extract as a metadata the short description of the act, which the short description of a summary, which in itself explain the essence of the act. It is in like 1 or 2 or 3 sentences. And on the right side, you see again the identifiers. The first one is very say random identifier, which does not have any meaning, but it's just a unique identifier used to identify the summary. While the second one, summary legislation EU about classification summary, is interesting in a way that summaries, we have their own classification. We have 32 topics of different areas of EU or EU policies or topics of EU activities, and each and every summary is classified under one of these topics and subtopics under the topic. So this classification can be used if we want to classify again a EUR-Lex collection in some more like human understandable way, and then going from act and its summary and finding summary classification, we can also presume or assign this classification to an act itself. And then 2 more pieces of metadata, which are on the right bottom corner. Workday document, it describes the last review of a summary, which means that the moment when summary has been checked by the expert in the field, so how recent it is. And the last one, summary legislation EU obsolete, which is also very important to be taken into account, because in that case, if it is set to true, it means that summary is no longer represents the actual situation, or the act itself has lost its importance, and then the summary is kind of archived. So basically, this is what I wanted to present as regards the metadata for specific metadata for summaries and consolidation. And this is a list of additional resources where you can look and find a description of this metadata, how to access it and how to exploit it. And it was mentioned already before about the Sparkle endpoint and how Sparkle queries can be built. So all this metadata, which I described before, can be exploited in Sparkle queries. Thank you for attention. And if you have any questions, so feel free to write them.
Inma, I would have one question if possible.
Yes, go,
Yes.
Simon.
So you can access EUR-Lex in a lot of different machine-readable ways. How is it actually with all the EU member states? Are they also that advanced? Or, for example, if I want to link EU law and national law, how can I do that?
It is not a question to me, I suppose.
Whoever feels confident to answer.
I just can, from my private experience, I can say that for probably with this variety of cases, and we have a very different advancement levels of different EU member states.
Okay.
I don't know if you hear me, but I confirm what Silvina says. I mean, member states, they don't have the same, there's not really an equal common way to respond for member states. We are, for example, there's Finland and Estonia that are really more towards open data, and others, they are much less. So it really depends on the single member states but we don't have the harmonization now about technology, and there is quite of individual. We try to harmonize when it goes like ECLI, ELI, these identifiers. This is how we start to collaborate. This is some identifiers they can connect, they can use. This is the way we are going with these initiatives. And there are websites, national websites with an API, others less. The variety of formats as well.
Okay, thank you, Valentina.
Okay, just to finish with this webinar. Thank you very much, Silvinas and the colleagues from EUR-Lex for your presentation. And so now we go with the presentation from CELLAR. So Enrico Francesconi, you can start whenever you want.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I will show my presentation. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, so the most part of the information I'm going to provide has been already given by my colleagues before. Anyway, I will shortly describe the role of CELLAR and the CELLAR Sparkle endpoint within the information system of Publications Office, and particularly the open data policy of the European Commission, in which dimension the CELLAR is conceived within the Publications Office information system, which is actually the physical but mainly the logical representation of the CELLAR repository, and the focusing the attention on a common data model, which is the ontology, what we call CDM ontology, which is actually the data model of the CELLAR content. And then we will show you some examples of the query that you can dispatch through the CELLAR Sparkle endpoint. As I said before, basically CELLAR conforms to the open data strategy of the European Commission, which aims to provide all data and documents available for reuse and free of charge in machine readable format, and through a data portal, which is actually the European data portal that we have discussed before. But also public documents have to be published by the Commission or by public or private entities through publications, website, or dissemination tools. And actually, the CELLAR Sparkle endpoint is part of this. Is one of the dissemination tool of the content provided by the Commission. So basically, in the last few years, the Publications Office has worked to create a so-called open data cloud, focused mainly on EU law, and in particular, as we have seen before, EUR-Lex is the main dissemination service of this. Then we have public procurement, EU data, pre-legislation, EU research, general EU information, and EU case law. And what we had in the last few years was a transformation program where we had previously an architecture where basically different kind of resources were stored and disseminated through different channels. So we have one channel for EUR-Lex, for TED, for EU Bookshop, for Cordis. But now, actually, the new architecture consider CELLAR repository of all these, let's say, content, so that CELLAR represents the main hub of the central hub of the Publications Office content. And actually, CELLAR is, from the logical point of view, composed by two different parts. The so-called common content repository and common metadata repository. So basically, we have a document, content, resources, and the set of metadata that are actually able to describe the content from the semantic point of view. So documents are available for long-term preservation, open data, indexing, and it provides in particular linked open data services. So basically, CELLAR conforms to the guidelines of the linked open data. Which basically is one of the main approach for implementing the semantic web in an effective way. And resources are semantically described by an ontology, which is actually the common data model, which is actually which represents the model for all the metadata of the CELLAR content. So just a few figures of CELLAR. It's more for giving a flavor of the degree of magnitude. So mainly more than 250 million documents in 24 languages. We have metadata in 24 languages stored in the common metadata repository. About 1,500 million triples stored in the CELLAR has RDF in the RDF triple store, and we have more than 10 million requests per day. And this is the main sketch of the CELLAR logical organization, where we can appreciate the distinction between the common content repository and common metadata repository. So, as we have also seen before, CELLAR provides resources and identify resources using URI according to the linked open data guidelines, and are also described in terms of metadata using RDF. And the triples, which actually represent the individuals which are able to instantiate such an ontology, are metadata defined within the CDM, so the common data model, and are represented in RDF, schema, and OWL, which are actually the two languages for representing semantic models in the semantic web. So this is an example of a CELLAR URI, where you can see here a URI of an OJ represented as I said, a URI, an HTTP URI, again according to the guidelines of the linked open data. The main focus maybe in this presentation is to show what CDM is. CDM is an ontology for representing documents, and the main model that CELLAR adhere with is the so-called FRBR model, which means functional requirements for bibliographic records, which was defined by IFLA, which is the International Federation of Library Association, and distinguish 4 different levels of abstraction for representing resources. And in particular, we have the level of work, which represent a distinct intellectual creation. For example, a piece of legislation, represented in terms of the issuing authority, the type of the measure, or the date of issue, or the number of issue, and so on. Then we have the expression level, which which contains metadata of a different version over the time or across languages of a specific work. Then we have the manifestation level, which represent any different realization of an expression. For example, the paper format, because you can also represent physical object, or digital format, like, for example, PDF, XML, XHTML, and so on. And finally, you have the level of the item, which is actually a class containing the URIs of all the single copy of a manifestation. Any level, apart from the item, includes a set of metadata representing the bibliographic description of a bibliographic resource. So these are, for examples of URI at different level of abstraction in the FRBR hierarchy. So we have the URI, one URI of OJ at word level, at expression level. In particular, we have the English version, and then we have the XHTML manifestation of a specific expression. This is actually the core model of the current CDM model, which we used to call CDM4 because it is actually the version 4 of the CDM, which focused on the FRBR model. And you can find this model in the EU vocabulary, and this is the link where you can find it. But going in the website of the EU vocabulary, you can look for ontologies, and then you have two different ontologies, the ELI ontologies and the CDM, and then you can access CDM and its documentation in particular. This is, for example, a possible modality to access in a more human-oriented way the CDM. So, for example, using Protégé, which is an ontology editor, is free of charge, and you can download it and retrieve the ontology and the different specification of each class and properties. And finally, 2 words about Sparkle, which is a service for conveying queries from a query client to a query processor. It's a protocol and also an RDF query language. It basically is a standard way for querying an RDF database. The service that is available for CELLAR is called the Sparkle Point. And it's, let's say, enable users, which can be humans or software agent, to query knowledge base via the Sparkle language. This is the interface, the human interface of the Sparkle that can be reached at the URI that has been shown here in this slide. And here you can have, for example, the results that you can have. So in a certain, basically a stream of say RDF statement. And we have here a few examples of query that can be submitted to the Sparkle endpoint. For example, we can try to find all the document having this identifier at work level, but maybe more human-oriented, say, query can be try to find documents and related IDs having a specific date as document date. So basically, you have to introduce here the CDM prefix, which is actually the namespace of the CDM ontology, the prefix of for XML, the XSD in particular, and you can select a work having the work date document written like the following: 2015 04/28, represented as actually has a date. So basically, this is a data property which provides actually the real metadata content linked to resources that can be retrieved. And then here in the presentation that I will leave to the for publication on the EU Datathon website, you can find other queries that might be of interest for anyone who wants to exploit the benefit of having a semantic web repository like CELLAR. For example, here you can find all the resources having a specific related ID of the class work. So basically, the list of all the works that can be included in CELLAR, and here you have another query in where you can find all the OJs that have 1958 as a again, it's a matter of looking for a word having the value 58 at the level of high property of year, and so on with other queries. But important to understand here is that
because Emma's home starts yeah.
Ok, io faccio una telefonata e poi sono con te.
I can hear some other voices. Okay. What is important is to access to the documentation of CDM, which is published, where CDM is also published, and to the manual that, for example, Valentina before showed in the EUR-Lex website. So with all this kind of documentation, you can better understand the rationale behind the CDM model and how you can exploit the data stored in CELLAR according to the semantic web approach. So we have here other queries just for the sake of explanation or demonstration, let's say. And thanks for your attention.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Enrico, for your presentation. We don't have questions about CELLAR. We have another question for Cecilia in terms of TED. I don't know if you could.
Yes, I'm looking at it. Maybe I can advise that Manuel sends us an email, because I can look at it now, but I might not find the answer before the end of the webinar. So maybe using the email address of the presentation is the best, or the contact form on the website.
Perfect. Cecilia, would you mind to write down the email again of the functional mailbox in the chat box, please?
Yes, no problem.
Thank you. So, well, if there are further questions, of course, you can write us to our functional mailbox. This presentation will be soon published on the website. Thank you all very much for taking the time and efforts to participate in this webinar. Due to the circumstances, we know all that we have to make an extra effort in terms of technical issues and so on. Thank you for all the speakers to participate and for your contributions. I'm sure it will be very useful for the participants. And please don't forget to submit your proposal before the 3rd of May. We're here to support you and help you. And take care and stay at home. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.